Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Promoted channel. I appreciate you joining me today. The video today is going to be on one of my most popular blog pieces of content that I did at the end of last year, which is a overall upcoming job market prediction and outlook for 2025. Obviously, last year's was for 2024. And I have a feeling this is going to be a significantly longer video than normal that I will break up into a part one and part two. That way it's a little bit better to digest, as well as full transparency. This will be a test of my content creation abilities a little bit. I have yet to do a video this long. I do not script anything. These videos are very organic. I might have some minor notes for myself just to make sure I touch on high points. But if you do have any feedback for this more longer form content, where this is going to stretch a little bit beyond that typical 20 to 25 minute video like I normally do, like I said, I'm going to break it up into two parts to hopefully match that similar length. But if you have any feedback for this longer form content, if you want me to dive deeper in certain areas, or you would rather me just make it one big video, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's dive right in. So 2025 job market outlook is very up in the air and is very difficult to predict. So this is going to come off like a little bit of a political video because that's what's making it sort of a 50-50 scenario. There's a lot of political discussion, policies, and changes that could have upside, could have downside. And I just simply want to present both scenarios to you because we really don't know until it happens. And the other irony is while there's going to be some stuff that might just sound like it's stacking really well, like it's going to lead to good things, there's also a level of order of operations and execution and just unknowns that are going to be presented by this. So please understand that while it's obvious that this is a outlook, so it is a prediction, and that I'm not necessarily saying these are guaranteed going to be what it is, I think more so than the last few years, this year is even more up in the air. Because there's going to be a lot of change, and then you got to wait for that change to make a difference and how much is going to be immediate versus long-term. And we'll address all that in this video. So first and foremost, I actually just want to kind of give you the overall trends that I am seeing in the career coaching space, because there were three that I was blown away by this year for me that I did not expect, did not anticipate, and that I think maybe will encourage and give you all some more confidence as well. And the three that I saw as a career coach really bump up in 2024 in terms of my clientele were older, either pre-retired or retired people re-entering the workforce, a lot more career transitions due to displacement, whether that was just straight up layoffs or actually jobs being eliminated, and a lot of people looking for a career transition or a new career start due to a relocation. So this was just very interesting that these were not the typical clientele that I've supported in the last, let's say 24 months before this. So 2022 and 2023, the people that I mostly helped in that regard were looking for, from the coaching side, a little more interview training, salary negotiation, but otherwise we're just standard job hunt people. Hey, I was recently laid off, or I, might start looking for a new job. I want you to help me out. It was very much a mixture of proactive and reactive standard job hunt scenario. This year, easily, these three camps, when I look back and read the numbers, were about 35% of my clientele across 2024. And that is nowhere near the typical percentage, and especially the older workforce reentry. And so the interesting thing that I thought about this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics also has the same prediction. They don't quite know the number, but like right now, I believe from my previous video, the baby boomer generation is about 11.3% of the workforce and expected to decline, obviously because they're retiring. But what's interesting is the overall percentage of the workforce, they're expected to remain higher than previous generations. So where you might have that decreasing at a 2% year over year rate. So 11.3 was 2024, and then 9.3, 2025, something along those lines. They're expecting that to be a much slower decrease, whether that's due to people delaying their retirement, or like I've seen where people are coming out of retirement or coming out of pre-retirement and re-entering the workforce, is very interesting. And this is usually linked to cost of living, that the money that they had set aside, the retirement that they planned for, the money explosion of inflation has just caused them to have to reenter the workforce in some capacity. And it very much is an uphill battle. So how this affects the job market for 2025 is that understand the competition is going to remain fairly high due to the older workforce staying in longer. And that has its pros and its cons. In terms of they provide more experience, they provide more real world information. But at the same time, if it is this kind of retirement crowd, they've also been out of the workforce a little bit. So companies might view them as a risk, but they're still going to be a part of the talent pool and a part of the job candidate strategy. So just a very interesting statistic that could go either way in terms of a pro or a con for the overall general job candidate of age in terms of your Gen Zers, millennials, and Xers. But just something to keep an eye on. Career transitions, and I'm going to lump this together with the career locations because these kind of go hand in hand, but kind of not. People are exercising the mobility and the technology that we have in 2025, both to displace people and create new jobs and replace, maybe more mundane entry-level type jobs. That's what's causing the transition for a lot of people that were laid off, and they're looking for something more scalable for the long term. And then there's also people that are just saying, hey, I can spend, $2,000-$3,000. I can relocate to a more in-demand area and I can land something that's going to be there long term. It also might be a cheaper cost of living where they're moving. So there's just a lot of factors and people are migrating. They are relocating. And it's just very interesting to see. So for those of you that are out there in the market and have been in a long time, you're competing against people that are willing to relocate, especially for those of you that are demanding full remote. Hybrid work, on-site work is increasing a lot more as well across not just large companies, but it's trickling down into the, let's say step down from large, medium to large and even small businesses as well. And they're getting their workforce by having people relocate. And then the irony here is that it costs them potentially a one-time relocation fee as a company and are bringing people in. So I really think that everybody needs to reevaluate their ability and capability for relocation and for moving and going to where the jobs are and actually weighing, hey, how much am I going to make over here and how much does it cost to live over here and what's the lifestyle like? And we as a people really need to embrace the level of technology and the ease at which relocation comes. And I don't see this shift changing. I do believe that the increase in hybrid and on-site work is going to continue. I think there's a lot of data to support it. I think most data supports hybrid work as the best for organizations from an employee retention, satisfaction, and output perspective, because those are what you have to balance. And the key there as to why remote actually falls down from the data that I've seen is the output. People feel they're more productive or think they're more productive. And they use the excuse of having, the water cooler, people coming by their desk or this or that when they're in the office. But what they also don't realize is at home, they have access to Netflix. They have access to social media. They are just constantly being distracted by the home things that is either breaking even or in some cases worse. So I think that we as a workforce collectively, if we want to thrive, we need to be ready to make career transitions. I will link to the previous videos that I made a couple of weeks ago on the kind of dying careers and skill sets and the improving and high demand careers and skill sets for some different options and opportunities. I'll link those in the description below. But I think we need to be prepared for a career transition, and resting on your laurels now is just not the time with AI and digital transformation. And some people might also need to be willing to relocate. You might need to be willing to uproot yourself and go to where the demand is. As opposed to trying to demand the workforce or the job market and companies to bend to you, because there are people that are willing to do these things, and those people are just going to continue to displace you and beat you out. Again, I'm not saying everybody has to do this because not every company is requiring this, but I do think it's a trend that I am predicting will continue to increase in 2025. So key takeaways for the trends that I've seen this year as a coach and people seeking me out are people on the older spectrum, re-entering the workforce from pre-retirement, retirement, a lot more career transitions, mostly due to displacement by technology and digital transformation. And then people looking for either a career transition or just a job search strategy for an area they're unfamiliar with due to them relocating, either preemptively or reactively. So yeah, that's been my 2024, that I did not see these things coming, especially when comparing it to 2023 and 2022 and the clientele I faced there or helped there. So now we'll dive into a little bit more of the data. And like I said, this is going to come off like a little bit of a political video. It is not intended to be. It is intended to arm you with the information of what is happening and what has been said and what the potential pros, cons, short-term, long-term outcomes are for each of these scenarios. The first piece here is going to be much more just from a data perspective. So I'd like to cover the BLS job market predictions. Then we'll jump into some of the policy stuff around taxes, tariffs, the Department of Government Efficiency, immigration, and the military and defense spending and things like that, and just kind of give you my 2 cents of, like I said, what is the potential for good, what is the potential for bad, and how this really can affect the job market, and both short and long term, because you might have good and bad in the short with good in the long and things like that. So we'll kind of have our little matrix here of covering each of these topics, and that's why I'm expecting this to be a longer video. So if we get into the BLS statistics, so one thing that is very interesting, I mentioned the trend that I'm seeing of the significant career transition due to the displacement and technology and digital transformation, specifically around AI and machine learning. And the BLS did a survey of a few thousand organizations out there, and 75% of companies are planning to adopt some form of AI or cloud computing and big data. Big data in this case really just means significant data analytics to drive decisions. So don't get caught up in the buzzwords. 75% of companies are planning to adopt these advancements in the next 5 years. Now, how that's adopted is going to be the big question mark. And I'll cover that piece a little bit as well. But I think that this very much aligns with the trend that I have seen with the clientele that I am supporting now and helping. And really the biggest thing to know here is it's okay to transition careers. And it's also easier than most people think. I'm not going to sit here and make it out like it's just like any other job search strategy. Like, you do need to put forth effort in terms of potentially some re-education, potentially some certifications, or, broadening your overall horizons and skill set a bit. But again, we are in the technological age and transitioning is easier than it ever has been. So I do think that anybody that is effectively a entry-level position, anything that is very repeatable and mundane, I'm going to think about call centers, customer service, maybe even low level of accounting, finance. On the information technology side, if you're help desk or call center, even maybe junior software development, these sorts of things, QA from a I guess I'll actually go QA across the board, whether this is manufacturing, whether this is software development, whether it's, automotive, pick your industry. I think QA can be automated in a large degree in a variety of facets. So think about things where you can really create the SOP. You can effectively hire a human, give them a piece of paper, and then they can perform the job. Those are going to be the jobs that are targeted significantly here. These are going to be the things that in the next couple years are going to be phased out and we'll say replaced with technology, which is then going to generate new jobs and a higher demand in these technology management or robotics management or robotics technicians or even blue collar, right? So kind of gauging in there a little bit. So knowing that 3/4 of companies are planning to adopt this, I mean, even myself as a small business owner, right? I'm a one-man band as a career coach and resume writer. I use cloud computing and artificial intelligence for a variety of functions within my business to make my life easier. And I'm only doing more and more of that as well as I systematize my business, where instead of maybe me hiring, an assistant or a marketing person or a salesperson or these particular functions, I can begin to automate the lower portions of these and AI the lower portions of these to allow me to continue to do these before I have to go spend money on labor. So it's even at the startup level, like the true startup level, that this is going to be huge. So please be ready that if you look at your job and you could fit it on a piece of paper from an instruction standpoint, not a job description standpoint, the job is at risk in the near to long term future. I think the biggest things in 2025, just so since that's the focus of this video, that are going to be impacted, I very much think anything call center related, regardless of the industry. So if we're talking help desk IT support, we're talking technology support, we're talking customer service, hospitality, let's see, technical support centers for, any given industry. I think that is going to be impacted significantly first in 2025. From what I've seen there, most companies like Salesforce and Ada and Intercom are taking their AI chatbot and AI chat services and throwing voice on top of it now that they have a bunch of machine learning and data and information behind it that they've trained it on. And now they can have realistic phone conversations, and that's going to begin to displace that workforce. I also think that, again, entry-level positions in accounting and finance, where it's very repeatable numbers, you're not necessarily dealing with accounts payable, accounts receivable, or vendors negotiation, these sorts of things, but you're kind of building these spreadsheets and doing reconciliation, these sorts of lower level functions, that sort of stuff, I think is going to be significantly impacted in 2025. So like I said, things that are very, very repeatable. So you either need to look to advancing your career to the next level, because the higher you are from a career perspective, the longer it will take for you to be replaced, or you need to look at a skill set that is going to either enable you to be a part of this technological and digital transformation, like a project management, machine learning, software development, information technology, or even going to blue collar. Like I said, I made a video a little while ago as well, where I believe blue collar is the next, we'll say, standard millionaire class. Like that will be the sought after high paying job for quite some time in the foreseeable future. So this is one of the big BLS predictions that also aligns with what I'm seeing from a tactical hands-on clientele perspective. Now, something that might be some good news for everybody, going, a little bit away from the, hardship or doom and gloom of having to transition your career or move up in your career or really put some, fire underneath you, is that the BLS is expecting a much more standard salary increase in 2025. So companies are going to return to that standard kind of 3 to 4% for a normal scenario. Now, obviously, high performers might get more, lower performers might get less. But, I always felt like on any given year when you got that 3 to 4%, that you were probably just doing your job. You weren't the high performer and you weren't the low performer. So when there was a lot of stagnation and people getting 1%, 2%, 0% raises, that's always a bad sign of company health. But they are predicting for people to have a standard 3 to 4% kind of cost of living, maybe cost of living plus 1% with that 4% scenario. Now, where that cost of living comes from as well is from the rate of inflation. And while right now we are in that significant scenario, if we do go back to Trump's previous term, he actually averaged between 1 and 1.5% inflation on any given year. So if you do get that 3 to 4% raise, I'm not going to sit here and, say, oh my gosh, it's a game changer. But at least if he returns us to that in 2025 through the decisions and policies and implementation, then at least you're going to make up 2 to 2.5% of that loss of inflation. And, if you do get that year over year, again, let's assume that things go well. I told you I'd give you good and bad. Let's assume that things go well. And for the next 4 years, you're able to make up that 2% salary gain because inflation remains super low, but we retain that 3 to 4%. Then you're talking somewhere between 8 and 10% that you're going to make up in that inflation rate over the next 4 years. Again, it's still not going to fully outpace in terms of making up for all of the inflation over the last 4 years. But I believe when you do the cumulative inflation rate, that would knock out about 40% of it, if I recall correctly. So that's a potential pro. Now, at the same time, if we have the opposite, where the inflation continues, it stays at a higher rate, then this isn't going to be that big of an impact. So there's a level of just how these policies and things really play out, but there is the potential for you to start to feel the easing of your day-to-day cost of living, not just from the cost itself, but from the way that the raises are interacting with the present inflation rate of the upcoming term. So like I said, this is a 50-50 shot. We'll get into more of the policies and the potential there. But just know that if we have a return to Trump's first term, that we could start to make up some of that daily pain. But there's so many factors here. So, but that's at least nice to return to a normal raise rate from the prediction standpoint. And the other one, and this is going to actually circle back a little bit to the 75% of companies and the transitions that I'm seeing, is the fastest growing and most in-demand careers. Like I said, I'll link the video below to the previous ones that I did, but it's going to be computer and mathematical occupations to support the machine learning, AI, and digital transformation. And then it's also healthcare support. Healthcare is in a huge labor shortage from a nurse practitioner and doctor perspective. Ironically, some aspects are being replaced in this digital transformation as well. When you look at surgeries and robotics, you look at what machines are able to do and interpreting information. There's even talks about, we'll say, AI doctors, if you will, for your regular scheduled checkup and maintenance stuff, with just going in for your physical or getting your blood work done and being able to have that conversation about what these things mean. What is the interpretation? What changes can you make from a lifestyle perspective? What has already been done? Analyzing medical history. So just sort of the low-hanging fruit, there's a level that gets replaced, which would overall reduce the cost of the healthcare industry from the consumer perspective, because you're not having to necessarily pay a $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 salary just for your regular scheduled checkups, or at least the maintenance of your health perspective. Costs outside of that would be different, but so yeah, there's an interesting level of growth where these things actually coincide together, of the computer mathematical occupation and the healthcare support. So again, summing up and bringing those things back to the overall BLS predictions. BLS is Bureau of Labor Statistics for the United States. In 2025, they're predicting that 75% of companies will adopt some form of AI, big data, cloud computing in the coming years. So not specifically in 2025, but over the next, we'll say 3 to 5 years, I believe was the survey. They're anticipating a 3 to 4% annual raise, returning to that normal standard rate. And then the highest in-demand occupations are going to be the computer, mathematical, and the healthcare support. And that's also what I found in my kind of deeper dive research from those videos I did a couple of weeks ago.